Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to CURT. CURT stands for Corpus Informed Research and Teaching Interest Group at CATISO. My name is Ellie. I'm a co-coordinator of CURT group. Margie is another coordinator, but she couldn't make it today. So I'm going to be hosting myself. I have Yamur here. Yamur is from Northern Arizona University. She is a PhD candidate. It's her fourth year, and she's presenting on AI. Yamur, I'll
Yeah.
turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome. And thanks again for a great introduction, Ellie. It's so nice to be here again. I do hope that I can give you some insight, some AI, maybe I can answer some of your AI related questions. I would be really happy if I can do that. Oh, let me share my screen. I forgot about it. Okay, sorry.
And feel free, everyone, to post your questions in the chat. We will address it.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm gonna be using my phone for my notes. I'm sorry about it. We had a technical problem. So if you see me looking weird, like down here, it is probably because of I'm checking my notes. All right. Today I'm presenting a study on basically human likeness of ChatGPT generated texts. The question here is it's a very loaded one, and I don't think there is a straightforward answer to it, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that you will get some insight, some perspective regarding this question today. This is what I'm going to present is based on a study that I co-authored with my dissertation chair, Jesse Egbert, but it's just going to be me presenting. All right, so let's get started. Oops.
I'm maybe interrupting you at some point because I think the connection is not so great. I don't know if it's just on my side or not, but sometimes you're like logging out, like the speech is interrupted, but I can understand.
Oh no!
So
okay, I'm sorry. I mean, let me know if there's anything
please
I
continue,
can.
but just in case I interrupt you, that's the reason.
Okay, no worries. Okay. A quick overview. I'm gonna provide some very brief background information about what is happening in terms of ChatGPT or in general AI use in education, and what are some studies, what's going on in that field. And then I'm going to introduce Register. You might be familiar with it, you might not, because the basis of this study is a Register perspective. So I want you to be familiar with it. It's going to be a crash course of Register. And then I will talk about the methodology of the study, some results, and also I want to share a very short part of another study which is based on human perceptions. So I wanted you to see, because my study is mostly more it is like a linguistic analysis. I wanted to share also human perceptions a bit. I know this is a corpus, what do you guys call it? Not section. Oh,
yeah, interest group.
Yeah, interest group. Sorry. So it is mostly the studies, corp study, but I wanted to give some also insights from human perceptions, and then some conclusion and implications. All right. Yeah, I can see that it is slow, my whole thing. Okay. So you probably know that generative AI has been around for a while, but it's gained a lot of attention, especially scholarly attention lately. and it became really well known nowadays. And probably the most popular one is ChatGPT. So since its launch back in November 2022, if I'm not mistaken, like this ChatGPT has become a big phenomenon. I'm saying ChatGPT is like the most prominent example of it, but you know there are different generative AI tools out there as well. So these generative AI tools and in general like large language models have been proposed as a tool for like a tool for various contexts, including like translation services, customer support, content creation, programming, right? And of course, education is one of them as well. Like ChatGPT has been proposed as an effective tool for language learning and teaching. And several actually uses of ChatGPT have been proposed, especially when it comes to teachers and test developers. I guess the most important, like a couple of them are like using ChatGPT for lesson planning, using it for feedback, or you know generating some reading passages for varying proficiency levels, or generating quiz or exam items. And maybe you're familiar with it. It is not just like this is not only happening at the teachers level, this is also happening at the test developers level. Like Duolingo English Test has been using the large language models almost exclusively to you know create their tests. So it's been around for a while. And also there are some uses for learners, again like generating examples of target language for reading practice. They generating writing, like some writing topics, writing questions, and maybe also getting feedback for their own writing. Also, we know that some students use it as a conversation partner. Now that we also have the, you know, it is not only textual, but it can also speak now very well. So why not using it as a conversation partner? So many uses here, but me and my dissertation chair, we were especially, oh no, I'm sorry. We were especially curious about these, like, oh my God, yes, we are using like at the test developers level even ChatGPT to generate reading passages. This was like basically the starting point of this study. But then we were thinking like, but is it human-like? Like what we are using, is it actually representing a human language? Basically, are we exposing our students to something similar to human language? So we know that like human likeness is like the ultimate goal of an AI output. That is what they're trying to do. Like all the machine learning people, NLP people, that is the ultimate goal. And some have claimed that ChatGPT can actually generate human-like texts, but it is our responsibility to ensure the human-like quality of these texts before, like, you know, using it fully. There are like two, when it comes to evaluating the human likeness of these texts, there are usually two common perspectives. One is using human perceptions. So basically asking humans how believably human and evaluator finds a text. So like when they read a text maybe created by AI, how believable it is. Like this is the core of it. There is another aspect, like analysis of it. Some other researchers use statistical analyses of a set of lexicogrammatical features. They analyze discourse markers. They analyze vocabulary, diversity of the vocabulary, grammatical complexity, all those things, right? So we have two sides happening. And this study is more on the second side, more linguistic analysis. But the thing is, like, the question is a very important aspect that is universal in all human languages has been a bit overlooked, hasn't had enough attention, we believe, and that is register. Like, you might be wondering what register is, and I will talk about it in a minute. We believe that, like, this is quite important because, okay, sorry. Oops. Oh, no. It's so slow. But this is very important because register affects our linguistic choices, and I'll explain in a minute. So we want to see if this is such a universal aspect in all human languages. Well, let's see if ChatGPT can actually mimic it. So this we started with this question basically: does ChatGPT produce register appropriate language? Now let's talk about register. So I'm gonna use a metaphor. I guess this is called a metaphor. Let's say English. I'm gonna again, like, you can think about any language, but let's say English is a forest, right? Like all a big forest consisting of so many trees, right? And let's say that each of those trees represents a text. But just a second, by a text, I do not only refer to written text. A text it can be a written or spoken unit of discourse, okay? And that the text occur naturally, they are recognizably self-contained, and they have a function, they have a purpose, right? So when similar texts, similar trees come together to achieve the same purpose, to have the same purpose, we have different registers. So a cluster of aspen trees here might be representing a textbook. These pine trees here might be representing conversation register. And I think this is an oak tree. The oak trees here they might be representing the forum register, okay? So they come together and they have their own kind of clusters. In a way, we can say registers are the individual species of trees. And a register is culturally recognized, and it is like a culturally recognized variety of language, okay? It can be spoken, it can be written. I want to underline that. And the important thing here is that registers have a functional link between context and language. What I mean by that is this: depending on what we aim to achieve or who we are talking to, we make some linguistic choices, right? It is never the same. Like the way you, for example, chat with one of your friends and the way you talk during that chat is not the same as right now when I'm giving a presentation, right? So the language is it changes a bit. And to again continue with this metaphor, you can think that like these leaves here that we have, they represent the linguistic characteristics of each of these clusters, these registers. So Humans adapt their language choices based on the register they are targeting. So we use different lexicogrammatical and semantic features with varying frequencies in different registers. So these linguistic features, these leaves, come together and form the linguistic characteristics of registers. Hence, we have register variation. In a way, what I mean by register variation is linguistic variation happening in specific registers. I do hope that this gives you an idea of what I'm saying by why register is important. Like when I said like, oh, but no, we need to analyze the register and register variation to be able to talk about if ChatGPT has, it is human-like or its outputs are human-like. So this is the perspective we have. Different registers have different linguistic profiles. Let's see if that is what we find, what we can find in ChatGPT text. So this is our research question. Do texts generated by ChatGPT display register-specific linguistic characteristics similar to those found in human writing? And to be able to answer this question, of course, we need corpora. So for this study, we needed two comparable corpora, one representing the human language, the other representing ChatGPT language. If you are not familiar with what a corpus is, it is simply a big collection of real texts, like books, articles, conversations, social media posts, that researchers like me use to study how people actually use language. So far, corpora have been like the corpora available out there. They've been human language. But in this study, I created a corpus that is actually AI language. So, and I believe that we will have some AI corpora popping up, like will be available pretty soon. So this was like initially corpus meant to represent like authentic human language, but now things are changing a bit. And to be able to like analyze these corpora, I will use a method called multi-dimensional analysis, or MDA. This is a very, very common method in corpus linguistics and register studies. I will try to explain this as well as simply as possible without going to all the crazy statistical analysis parts. But basically, we use it to study language by looking at many features at once to see patterns across different registers. I will explain this a bit deeper in a minute. But let's talk about the corpora that I had. So as I mentioned, two corpora, one human corpus, one ChatGPT corpus. And since this is a register study, I needed to have registers. Like, I mean, ideally having more registers is better, but this was like a very exploratory study. So we utilized two registers, and we wanted them to represent academic writing mostly, because we were like in the educational context, we thought that they might be more relevant. And also for each register, we collected data from two disciplines, biology and history, and we chose them specifically because, again, one of them, biology, represents the hard sciences, while history represents social sciences. So at the end, this is a very small scale corpus. We have like in total, we had 200 texts, 100 coming from human, 100 coming from ChatGPT. So we first compiled the human one. We actually used the available corpus. So we did not, compile it from scratch. We used whatever available out there. And we, based on what we had, we kind of tried to create this parallel corpus on ChatGPT. So we use, like, prompting is important. I mean, how, like, whenever you listen to any kind of AI related presentation, the first thing I hear is, what's your prompt? What did you use? It could be more detailed, it could be less detailed, depending on your prompt, everything. Yeah, like it is the same with, I guess, when you talk about L2 studies, and when you give them a task, and this is basically the task. Like the people say, if you have given them a different task, maybe the learners could have used this. Yeah, we know, but we have to go with something. So for this study, we preferred a simple, a very basic level prompt, because we thought that, let's say, like an English as a foreign language instructor in Turkey want to just have a textbook entry to use as a practice in class, right? Like maybe they will have a reading exercise. So I don't think they would come up with a very detailed, advanced level prompt that will, give them the best output out there. So that is why we chose very simplistic, very basic prompts. And as you can see, they are very similar to each other. A couple things here. We said 500 words because the human corpus, the text from the human corpus, they were around 500 words. And we knew that ChatGPT would never give us 500 words exactly anyway. So we said 500 words, but it gave us something around like 450 to 550 usually. And another thing is that we stratified the sections of biology journal article, because there are also some studies saying like different parts of journal articles can have different language use, and we wanted that to be represented. We wanted to have that with history journal articles as well, but the issue that unfortunately they do not have such a structured section profile. Like they use so many different they didn't have literature review methods. Like they are, the way they write is a bit different than how we write in our field. So we applied that stratification to biology journal articles, but we couldn't do that for history journal articles. All right, so I hope you are with me. I hope everything's. I really want to make it like as simple as possible, because I know maybe some of you are not familiar with any of these terms. So I really do hope that at least you have an idea right now what a corpus is, what a register is. Now, the third thing, the multidimensional analysis. So this is the method we used basically to analyze our corpus. So this analysis examines linguistic variation by identifying patterns of correlated linguistic features within dimensions of linguistic variation. It might be like, what, crazy? You will see an example in a second. So what I mean is this. So this whole analysis is based on another analysis called factor analysis. So what it does is it groups linguistic features together. Like the linguistic features that tend to co-occur, they are grouped together usually. And sometimes some features like they group together, they co-occur together, while another group of features actually like don't occur at all. So they kind of push each other away. And you will see again an example in a second. This really helps us, like this approach really helps us to analyze text both linguistically and functionally. By functionally, it's more like qualitatively. And I'll also show you some qualitative data. For this analysis, you can either have a brand new multidimensional analysis, like brand new, trying to figure out which features co-occur together and how you will interpret those features, which we call dimensions. Or you can use already available linguistic features and dimensions. The difference is that we usually tend to have this brand new MDA when the register is also kind of brand new, right? Like, for example, maybe like 10 years ago or something, not 10, maybe 20, like blog, if you are analyzing blogs, right? The blog was like a new register happening online. I would go and use a brand new MDA. But right now we have so many studies already showing the linguistic profile of blogs using MDA. So there is no need to necessarily, run a brand new one. So for this study, since the registers we were interested in are quite established, instead of running a brand new one, we used an existing analysis that is called an additive multidimensional analysis. And for that, we used Egbert's research, Egbert's dimensions. And here they are. I'm going to show you the dimensions here one by one. Just a disclaimer, there are 5 dimensions in his study originally, but I am not going to cover all 5. We will only cover 3. So, okay, let's start. So the first dimension is called non-technical synthesis versus specialized information density. This is what I mean. So in this analysis, remember we said patterns and linguistic features that co-occur are grouped together. So these are called positive features because they are on a continuum. Positive, that is what it represented. There is nothing like characteristically positive or negative about these features. It's just to differentiate them. So these features co-occur together. While these features also co-occur together, the issue is that these 2 groups tend not to co-occur together. And the researcher, the original, like the study Egbert, interpreted this here representing these linguistic characteristics here, representing a technical, like a level of technical, non-technical synthesis. Like it is like more accessible and more interactive in a way. Okay. On the other hand, this here is interpreted as specialized information density. So this side of this dimension reflects the level of technical density in a text. Okay, so low scoring texts have more of this this character, specialized information density, while high scoring texts have a more non-technical synthesis character. To show it on a continuum, I hope this helps. We have a neutral point here, 0. And texts, they find a spot along this continuum, and they might be closer to the left side, or negative pole or positive pole, however you want to call that, it doesn't matter. So they can be more like representing a more specialized information density, as we will, for example, text 27 would be representing this pole really well, or it can be more non-technical language. For example, text 14 will be a good example representing this language profile. I would say text 2 is kind of close. It is more like close to the neutral area. I hope this helps. I hope this is clearer. And this was our first dimension. I didn't go over each linguistic feature, by the way, like there are so many of them, but you can see the list here, have a, take a look at them, and you will see why they are interpreted as these dimensions. The second dimension we have is definition and evaluation of new concepts. So basically, Egbert said that these features co-occurring together means that these texts like focus on introducing, defining, and evaluating new ideas. You might be wondering now, oh, okay, you mentioned two poles. You don't have anything here. Sometimes there is no other group that is like being pushed away. Instead, we have a lack of. So on the positive side, we have definition and evaluation of new concepts, this dimension, this kind of language being more represented. On the other pole, it is a lack of definition and evaluation of new concepts. And the third one I would like to briefly explain is author-centered stance. This is kind of similar to the previous one in the sense that it doesn't have negative features and negative pole. So this dimension basically reflects author involvement, like with high scoring text featuring very subjective language to express opinions and kind of engage in discussions, while low scoring text remain more objective, neutral. The author is not as present. And these linguistic features represent this dimension. And you can see there are a lot of nouns, some like mental verbs, personal pronouns, communicative verbs, right? So these all together are interpreted as an author-centered stance. All right, now let's take a look at the results. So you here see a box plot. This is basically, this represents the distribution of texts along that continuum for the first dimension. We have orange boxes for ChatGPT texts, and we have blue boxes for human text. And you can see here, this one here is a biology journal article textbook, register. This is history journal article register. This is biology textbook register. This is history textbook register. So each register and discipline combination is represented here. What we wanted to see when we looked at this box plot, it was like similarities. We wanted to see like similar like looking boxes overall, right? Because then it means that ChatGPT and human text, they have similar linguistic profiles. When we look at this dimension, I would say it is pretty good. It's not too bad. Like the biology journal articles are doing well. History journal articles are kind of doing well in the sense that the means are kind of close. But you see the variation is a lot smaller for ChatGPT. However, when we move on here, oh my God, what is happening? Like the means are so far away from each other, right? Here they are very close to each other. So to exemplify the differences, I mean, most of them, by the way, are significantly different. The mean scores are like comparisons are significantly different. But like, since the most obvious one is this one here, I want to, exemplify through this register. So I know this looks scary, it looks a lot of text, but this is what I meant by the qualitative analysis of MBA. So we have here on the excerpt 1 represents a biology textbook written by a human. The excerpt 2, the second bottom one, the same register but generated by ChatGPT. Okay, and you can see how they kind of occur in the opposite poles. While the human excerpt is not as technical, easier to read, not like as informationally dense. When you look down to the ChatGPT one, it is the opposite. It is the other way around. And I here highlighted some of the underlined and like annotated some of the very frequent linguistic features representing these dimensions. So the poles of the dimensions, I'm sorry. And you can see here, I'm not going to read them out loud, but I do believe that the second text is a bit too hard for a student trying to, get some information through their textbook. Too hard, a bit hard to complex to understand. Moving on to dimension 2, this dimension was interpreted as definition and evaluation of new concepts. I think this is especially related to textbooks again, right? Students want to know definitions and evaluations of new concepts. Again, when we look at here, I would say it doesn't look as similar as the first one. We see big differences. For example, even though you might think that, oh, but they both are like below 0 on one side of the pole. The problem is, yeah, but there is still a big difference in the mean scores, suggesting that this year it has a lot less definition and evaluation of new concepts than this mean score here. Okay, so the lack of is also, it has a degree in a sense. Remember we said lack of. But look at, again, biology textbooks. The mean scores are like on the opposite poles. One is here, the mean score is above 0. The other one is a bit lower than 0. And there is a huge variation in the text, like the level of using these linguistic features apparently varies a lot within the register, but it is not the case for ChatGPT. You always see how small the boxes are for ChatGPT. They are not like, because it is human language, right? Even though registers have similar linguistic profiles, humans might not, like they are very subjective. They might bend the rules as they want if they want to, or they can use whatever they want. So you can see here the variation is a lot more prominent in human writing. And to give you another example here, again, the same structure. Above the excerptable is from human writing, and below is ChatGPT. You see the features associated with definition, like explaining a definition or a new concept. You can find them in the human written text, while it is not so much in in this little excerpt, non-existent at all. So that is another problem. Textbooks, they need to evaluate, they need to give us some definitions and evaluate new concepts for students to better grasp the topic at hand. It looks like this, to me, this looks a lot more journal article, a research paper, than a textbook. I mean, ChatGPT's excerpt. And finally, author-centered stance. Again, like when you look at it here, we see a discipline, actually, a disciplinary effect as well. You see that history discipline is like the registers in those disciplines, they have a bigger gap, like, right? The differences are more prominent. And to exemplify this, I'm gonna choose the history journal article here. Again, you can see that in the human textbook that the author is apparent in this writing. They share their ideas, they make themselves present. They, you know, like give some suggestions, which I think you would agree with me. That is something you would expect from a history journal article, because like it is a bit argumentative, right? But again, if you look at the bottom excerpt, there is no presence of author, and it to me looks a bit more like a Wikipedia entry than a journal article. All right. Okay, I gotta check time. Oh my god, I'm late. Okay, so how about humans? Very quickly, this is I'm not gonna go into details of the whole study, but in another study, 83 participants were asked to identify the authorship, right? Which text belongs to which author, ChatGPT or human. We had 2 texts per author. Another question was identify the register of the texts. We had blogs and textbook texts. And finally, evaluate the functional appropriateness of ChatGPT generated text. What I mean by that is, if you say like the communicative purpose of this text, is it achieved? Okay. For this presentation, I'm only going to focus on this first question here because, oh God, because I just want to give you some human perceptions very quickly. So here you see, can humans distinguish ChatGPT writing? That is the question. You see we have 4 texts, the top 2 written by ChatGPT, bottom 2 written by humans. And you can see here, the majority of the participants could successfully identify the human text. But here we see that, like a cross going like this, we see that while the majority of the participants could identify the textbook register, they were not as successful when it comes to identification of, oh, I'm sorry, other way around. They were successful at identifying the blog register, more successful than identifying the textbook register. So what am I doing? Yes. So here, for example, the majority of the participants thought that ChatGPT textbook text was actually written by a human. Okay. So like, can they really identify, distinguish them? I mean, this is a very small scale study again, but you see that out of 2, they could only distinguish 1. But even if the odds were not favoring them in that sense, the ones who could actually identify, they talked about such great points. Like I'm gonna talk about a couple of them. So the first thing they mentioned was that it felt robotic. This text feels robotic. It lacks of emotion. It is very monotonous. So they thought that is why it is artificial intelligence. Another thing is that some participants thought AI language has some buzzwords. Like one said that, oh, it loves using we and our, like to have that, oh yeah, if you talk to ever chatted with AI, you know how positive it is sometimes. So this was one of the things they were like buzzword AI. Another one was that they said some very normally infrequent words in human language appear a lot in AI language, and this one participant even kind of listed all those words that they think are the infrequent words in human language. Another one was especially like for the blog text, they said that the team was treated very superficially, like there were no emotions, no creativity. I mean, what was this? Very generic in a sense. And another common theme was they found some repeated structures. And one said that in this text there are like 2-3 sentences that starts with yet and ends with and it is precisely. So they were like, I don't think humans will do that unless it's some kind of a rhetoric, like a choice, like to be more, sound more poetic or something. So here you see, like, what I'm trying to say is this. Yes, maybe they couldn't necessarily pinpoint, like majority of them couldn't necessarily pinpoint which one was which, but the ones who could, they could also identify some issues. Another thing I'm trying to say is this: we are humans. It is hard to see patterns. Like, we are not machines, we're not like computers. We cannot like scan everything and calculate how many adjectives, how many words, whatever, right? We cannot do this. And that's why sometimes to us it might look very natural, or it might look like AI texts do not necessarily have a lot of differences compared to human texts. But that is when the linguistic analysis comes into play, right? That is why we need robust, rigorous linguistic analysis, because human perceptions may not always reflect the reality of linguistic choices. So,
and more, let's
to wrap up,
3 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. So, conclusion. The big question, sorry, I will come to that. So ChatGPT shows some register variation. You saw that the box plots, the ChatGPT box, they were not exactly the same across the registers or standing exactly the same location, right? There was register variation. So ChatGPT kind of is aware of register a bit, but the patterns often do not align with human patterns, human texts. ChatGPT exhibits less linguistic variability than human text. Remember the box sizes. And it seems that ChatGPT performs better in journal articles and struggles in textbook context more, especially in biology. The reason why is probably the training data sets. Probably they had more like texts in the data set representing journal articles, and so the ChatGPT just refers back to those. And so this is like I'm not gonna go into this again. This is basically a summary of the dimensions, like what we found in these dimensions. But I want to say this: findings confirm other quantitative studies, but somehow contrast with human judgment studies. I'm saying somewhat because, well, what I found out of 2 texts, they could identify one. And overall, I would say ChatGPT falls short in mimicking register specific linguistic features found in human language, human text. A couple implications. So the question, should we use it? Should we use it in our classes? I mean, I cannot say yes or no. I know it is helpful, but I'm going to say approach with caution, because like we saw some issues, right? Like we saw they are not necessarily representing human language. So maybe if you want to use it, read the text. Do not just copy paste it. Like, we need some human revision. I'm sorry. So it is a bit problematic using it in classes. We might be exposing our students to a language that is not necessarily human-like. Another thing is human judgment alone is not sufficient. That is why we need robust quantitative linguistic analyses. And what I want to say is training data should better represent diverse registers. I'm not saying that we should never use AI. We should, but we should first start with the training data. Because if the training data represents diverse registers, I believe that the outputs of generative AI will also be able to mimic human language better. So yeah, we need, a nice diversity of registers. And that is it. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I was out of time.
No
I ran
worries.
out of
Thank you so
time.
much, Yamur. I'm
Okay,
glad that you
thank you.
answered the very nagging question there, Shimur.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't the ideal answer, yes or no, but
Yeah, it was like, I mean, I think nobody can at this point say yes or
yeah,
no to,
it's probably
yeah.
impossible at this point.
But
Thank you so
but
much.
I do hope that now you have at least an idea of how it looks linguistically, like how a ChatGPT output looks linguistically. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It was a very informative, very sort of stats heavy, but at the same time, I know you did your best to explain all those notions.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. Okay, I'm gonna turn over to questions. If anyone wants to unmute themselves and speak up, please do. If not, I will just read the questions in the chat. Anyone wants to ask a question to you more?
I can ask my question. I mean,
Yes,
I wrote it in the chat. The first one is kind of a little bit of a novelty question, although it might be longer term implications about whether AI text will slide itself in. You know, the term they use is AI slop, falling into the corpus. And so, you know, I don't know that we need an answer for that right away. The bigger one that I'm actually more particularly interested in is the second one, which is the longevity of these expected differences, because essentially we see these corporations like GPT-0 saying that they can track and chase whether something's AI, and then almost immediately they're turned around and someone finds a way to break it and say, hey, you know, like these rules that we have for figuring out whether something is AI are quickly broken. And so I'm interested in whether you think there's an expected longevity in the differences that you pointed out. So saying like, hey, we've got these boxes, we're able to look at them, or whether it's just like hey, we're talking about a slice in time right now, but who knows what happens tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you so much for your great questions. So the first one, I would say, there is a high chance that now, if you're compiling a corpus online, a kind of an online corpus, there is a high chance that they might not be written by a human anymore. So, yeah, that is problematic. For corpus compilers, I wouldn't say it will affect like if you're compiling spoken corpus that much, but if you're compiling written online, any kind of written online corpus, yeah, I think you will probably end up with more AI than real authentic human language. The second question, yeah, like that is the thing. So my dissertation is also on AI. This basically what I presented, but times 100. Like it is like on steroids. But that is the thing. What I'm trying to actually achieve is like come up with a framework that would help us to evaluate if what we have currently can achieve what we expect. But I totally agree. Like this is like developing. It is insane. Like what do we have now? GPT-5. So like almost every year or 2 years, they are actually upgrading their system. And I do believe that if they also, as I mentioned, along with these upgrades, maybe technical upgrades, if they also upgrade their training data, I think that, let's say they do that and we have ChatGPT 6, I do believe that if I run these analyses again, I would have a completely different like a set of results. Those box plots probably would look a lot different. But as you said, with this study, we wanted to achieve, like we wanted to see if what we have currently can mimic the human language. But then again, this might not be relevant in 2 years, depending on the advancements in technology. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me stop the recording.